You're with Doug. This is Table Talk, and we are talking with Natalie Nicholls this morning, and we're talking about when should we give our kids a phone. How you doing, Nat?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to this. It's one of those controversial topics about what age do you give your kids a phone or a smartphone, because I think there's a little bit of a difference between giving them a phone that they don't have internet access to as opposed to a smartphone. Let's talk about what some of the research says, but I know you've got a bit of a story to kick us off.
Yes. Yep. I thought I might start off with a little bit of a story. So let me tell you about Mia. So she's 10, very clever, creative, persuasive. She spends months asking for a phone from Mum. All my friends have got one, Mum. I'll only use it for texting my friends or calling, and so when Mum was caught between wanting to protect her, because she knows what, we hear about phones, but also for her wanting to fit in. And so she finally gave in and handed over the smartphone. Mia immediately knew that there were some downloads, so we've got to get onto Snapchat, got to get onto some Instagram, some YouTube. This is where all my friends are hanging out. And so she wanted to be socially connected. Within a few weeks, Mia's default was having the phone in her hand, taking it with her everywhere. So when she was bored, she was on her phone. She didn't know what else to do but phone, homework, eating, shower, bed. But what happened was her behaviour started to change. The relationship with her parents started to change. The fights started to increase. Parents wanted her off her phone, but then there were tantrums, couldn't get the phone off her. Her anxiety started to increase. She became really moody. Was she really ready for the device, but she already had it? And Mia's story is not unusual because many parents stand in the same crossroads. Am I doing the right thing by giving them a phone or by not giving them a phone? And what is the right age?
That's a good question. What is the right age? How do we decide when our kids are ready? Is there science behind that?
Yeah. So look, Doug, what I wanted to talk to everyone today about is we're not really looking at age as such, okay? I want everyone to understand there's different things between chronological age, which is when we have our birthdays and things like that, and also then developmentally what our age is, right? So we're going to have a look at what the research unpacks, the neuroscience behind it, the cognition and child development levels on whether your child is actually ready from that perspective. Do they have that neurological maturity to use the tool? So is the brain developmentally ready for it?
Okay, so is the brain developmentally ready for it is a great question. Can we maybe explain what you mean by neurological maturity?
Okay, so even though we may be chronologically, which I mentioned before, a certain age, we have different areas of our development relating to cognition, our physical development, all different areas of our whole being can be at different developmental ages, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that just because we are chronologically at a certain age that every other part of our being would be at that particular age developmental level at the same time. I'd like to relate it. It's a little bit like when someone does one of those like fitness tests or age tests or something. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen those. Yes. I haven't done one yet. I'm not really inclined to go and do one of those. But, and they'll say, okay, well, you're this age, but your body is at this age,
yes.
Right? Yeah. So the same kind of thing. And if we see that as our children as well, ideally what we really want is for them to be developmentally at the same, ages of our chronological age. But it's not common for them to be in all of those areas, right? Because every kid is different and everyone develops more at different speeds. So some are going to be a little bit older than chronological age and some might be a little bit younger in different areas. So it's important that as a parent that we understand where our child is at in those particular areas. And that's why looking at this from, is my child developmentally ready? Is their brain ready? And you can also use this with your child. Like, you have to show me your brain is ready. Because they can't actually do that.
Yeah.
Right? They can't do that. So we need to be able to see that they're showing behaviours or showing emotional maturity or showing certain things. And I'll go through those a little bit later on. But what they're actually showing us in that, because when we look at a phone or what we call a smartphone, there are 3 different things that we're giving our child when we give them a smartphone. We're giving them a phone. We're giving them a computer operating device that has internet access. And we're also giving them apps. So we need to make sure that as a parent that we are making an informed decision about what we are actually giving our child. If I break it down to 3 parts, phone, yes, definitely. I love having the phones. Remember, as a kid, it was like you wanted to call your friends call you, right? This is the fantastic period. Even my 6-year-old, I'll be like, yeah, have a phone that you can call and chat to people with. Having a chat with someone on the phone develops speech and language skills. It develops speech planning skills. It supports a child's social etiquette. It develops their emotional skills, their social cues. They get to understand tones of voices. They've got to and fro conversations. There's lots of brain regions which are activated, particularly our auditory cortex in there. So it's actually really, really supporting the development of the brain when we have the phone function. So yes on that.
Okay.
And I don't believe there's a specific age as such for actually talking on a phone, okay? Yeah. I'm talking Nokia phones.
Yeah.
Phones that don't kind of have the other functions at the moment. Then we have a look at number 2 being our internet access or kind of the computer-based system. And this is where we need to be remembering what the child is going to have access to and the danger in the excessive use.
Yep.
So there's 2 parts there, right? So internet access, do we need to first of all have it on the phone or can we just use it on our computers? That's the first thing we need to think about for the kids. So I'm all for learning the most amazing things you can on the internet. Like there's some amazing resources we can use. But unfortunately, we've got a lot of kids being exposed to inappropriate content that parents are not aware of.
Yeah.
So not aware of. And we're all saying, oh, my kid would never search that or never see that. But the thing is, it comes up. We can all have the best intentions, but it comes up or it gets sent somewhere. And these are things like pornography, violence, scary things, imposing negative self-image, hateful information, fake news, all these kind of things. So once we give our kids that smartphone with internet access, you're saying yes to access inappropriate content. So making sure that we're aware of that, and also then does our child have the knowledge to know that the excessive use of being able to scroll or looking through all that, going on there for more than 2 hours a day, keeping in mind we've already got computers at school for 2 hours a day minimum. What are we giving them during that period? And there's more research on the cognition on what's actually happening during that period and the research in a minute.
So one of my questions, I suppose, when it comes to mobile phones and kids is if it's okay for them to have a phone to call nanny or pop or to, which I think is a good thing for them to be able to do. That, as you said, there's communication skills in there and that's supervised by mum and dad. How do we get on where these days, and I understand why parents do it, but it's like stick the mobile phone screen in front of the kid to entertain them or the screen on the back of the seat to keep them entertained while they drive and those sort of things. Is there an issue with how we become addicted to screens or attachment to screens and maybe our development of our brain?
Definitely. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that you mentioned this, Doug, because if you're about to put a phone in front of a child in the car or in a pram or anything like that, I want you to think about and research what is actually going on inside the brain right there and then. If you don't know, don't do it, because it is actually detrimental to your child. I kind of like to think about it as, what were our ancestors brought up with? So phones and tools like that are great to keep kids quiet, right? And that's what happens. It's like they're entertained, they're quiet. But why are they quiet? What's actually going on inside of that brain? So if we are looking on a tablet in a car, number one, we're not looking outside. So we're actually creating stress on the brain. We're creating stress on the eyes. Okay, to start with, the constant changing of picture screens and things like that, we don't realise if you watch a screen or playing an app or things like that, it actually changes quite frequently. Yes. Okay, and so when it's changing quite frequently, it's teaching the brain that it needs that entertainment all the time. So then we have a huge rise on ADHD. Yeah. Now, lots of those kind of things, we're providing this for our child because our child likes it and wants it, but we don't know what's actually going on from that brain perspective, and we're actually limiting the opportunities for our child to develop the way that it should be from a natural perspective. So what you're actually doing is not supporting your child's cognition and development from a whole child perspective. And so we need to be remembering that, yes, there are times maybe at home where we need to have a bit of a break, and yes, TV or something like that, we've got to have that 30-minute off. But being mindful that not having them in a car We don't need to have them in cars, right? We don't need to have them in prams. Let kids look outside, explore outside, be back to nature the way that our ancestors were doing it and the way we were created to be doing that, because it is actually detrimental and damaging brains, because you're shaping a brain in every single moment of every single day.
Yep. When I was at film school, one of the things that I looked at was editing. And the story behind that is that I think it was every 3 seconds a shot roughly changes. It could be a cut, it could be a zoom in, it could be a pan out. Like you'll get some movies where you'll get like a walking shot, so the shot's actually following the actor through. So there's movement, there's always movement in the shots. So very rarely do you ever not get movement or those things, because our brain is wired now to respond so quickly. But one of the things that I've noticed, even when I'm looking at social media and that, because of things like the different social media apps we get caught on reels, things are even moving much quicker. It's not uncommon, I don't think, for even a second to a second and a half sometimes before we get cuts or micro changes that our brains are responding to. How does that tie into the wiring of our kids' brains? Like all that brain stuff when it comes to neurological and the research.
All right, so we know that approximately 50% of us are developed from the environment, okay? Only around 50% approximately is our genes. So if we think about where our kids are being exposed to, so if they're being exposed to lots of television or lots of media or even this excessive internet and screen time, the brain then is learning that it needs novelty every 1 to 2 seconds. It needs dopamine every couple of seconds. And so if it's being trained to do that, then when we get in the classroom, we're not getting entertainment every couple of seconds. When we're at home, we're not getting entertainment every couple of seconds if we're not, if we're playing around with a game or something. So we need to understand that this does, and there is a lot of research and more is coming out, because our kids are the dummies. I'm sorry, but we are the test dummies of this generation, and all the research is now coming out because they need longitudinal research, so they need to be able to prove it. The research is showing us that the kids who are on devices and the internet and scrolling and things like that, the excessive use, we've got poor attention. Now we need attention for learning, we need attention for functioning, we need attention for everything, and poor memory. So what they've showed is a reduced activation in our working memory, which is needed for our foundations of learning anything new. The attention, the interfering of sustained attention.
Yep.
Okay, so being able to hold for certain periods of time. And in addition, the third one is the long-term memory retrieval and storage pathways have been interrupted because there is too much information being provided to these kids.
Yeah, that's that overstimulation.
It's an overstimulation. So it's like, okay, well, where do I store that, right? So the brain, it has its own way of learning things, but if we're wiring it in a totally different way through these new devices and new ways of providing these things for our kids, then this is where the brain starts to miswire, I suppose, if you like. It's not wiring what we really need it to be wiring during these really, really foundational development skills. And as you were saying, with those 3-second changes or even 1 second, these are designed to be addictive. They are designed for that because they want people to be on them. And kids don't have the executive functioning or the self-control to be able to pause before reacting, for them to be able to resist those temptations as much as we want them to. They don't have that developmental level yet. Okay, so when we're telling our kids off for getting off the phone or stop doing that, they don't necessarily have those developmental skills to resist that yet and to make those thoughtful decisions. So when kids are given the phones before their age appropriate level, they're just going to scroll and they're just going to tap. And then this isn't what the brain's made to do. So it will become dysregulated. The melatonin levels get decreased because they're doing it too late at night, which impacts our sleep. We need to be thinking, what could my kid be doing instead of being on this phone at this particular time? If it's from age, you're deciding between age 10 and 12, what could my kid, if they need to communicate, what else could you give them to be able to communicate? Say the Nokia. I even know some kids who had kind of got those kind of phones. And then what would they otherwise be doing if they didn't have that internet usage? Where would their brain be growing and developing in other ways, which is going to set them up for life? Because the last part of that is apps and the texting and the instant gratification. And, are our kids ready for online rejection? because it's the same as real world rejection. They've done a lot of studies on that. So they know that what we're also doing is setting up artificial environments for children, and they're messing up the understanding of the real environment. Okay, so when they see these scenarios of relationships or things going on in YouTube, they're getting a warped view of what really happens in the world. Okay, they don't realize that these are kids are just making these videos up. They don't realize that there's stuff going on behind the scenes, that this is actually a prescribed script or someone's creating this. They think it's real and happening at that time. And that also goes into what movies and videos and all sorts of other things our kids are looking at and watching. They think it's actually happening and it's actually real because they're not developmentally ready, right? And we need to be thinking about that, because the dopamine reward loops builds us into that social media. The gaming target of brain developing, craving for novelty, affirmations, the mini rewards to keep kids coming back to it all the time. Yeah. And, is our child's brain neurologically ready if we gave them a car before they were ready to drive? It's not the car that's the problem. It's whether the driver has the skills to control it.
What are some of the common questions that parents need to ask themselves when it comes to their kids, and how do they know if their kids are ready?
So I've come up with 3 questions for you to ask yourself to test whether you think your child is ready for that smartphone, because we know that the kids don't have mature internal boundaries, okay, because that comes with age, and they cannot self-limit their usage, right? Okay. So don't expect that they're going to, my kid's going to be different. They just cannot, right? This can also undermine their development of their focus, resilience, and their real-world coping skills. So let's have a look at 3 questions. Number 1, it starts with the parent. Are you, as a parent, ready to be strong, to be mature and put the boundaries in place first, to put those protectors in place? Do you know how to and what to teach about screen hygiene? Do you know what contract you want to put in place with your child? What are the consequences that you're going to put in place when, not if, when your child pushes past the boundaries that you have already put in place for them? And then think, why are you actually giving it to them? Is it just because you want to be the cool mum or the dad? Is it because you just want to be the nice parent? Is there another alternative?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2, is their brain ready? So I want you to have a think about showing self-control, showing self-discipline. Do they have addictive behaviours where they can't get off the TV or they can't get off the gaming? They're not ready. The maturity age for research is showing age 12 to 14 at the earliest. I think this is getting older and older. More and research is coming out. We've already seen that now they're putting the limit in for social media to be age 16. So if we already know that it's already starting to increase, the later the better. Okay, there is no research to show there is damage on delay. So thinking about, is my child ready? Are they emotionally strong? Do we have a good enough relationship where we can talk about emotions, that we can regulate together? Remember that the parents, as a parent, you have that power to choose, okay? You are the one buying it. You are the one paying the monthly fee. You are the one that's giving them the power in that. So you do have a choice in that. I also hear a lot of the increase in kids seeing psychs and not being outside in nature. So is your kid already spending lots of time outside, or are they going to be spending more time on their phone? How are you going to limit that device time? So is their brain ready is number 2. Number 3, have you removed access to content that their brain is not ready to be exposed to?
Yes.
So things on social media, YouTube, the internet, have you removed access to that? If you want it for them to be safe, if you want to be able to contact them and they want to have an iPhone, you actually can block everything else. But that is your choice to do that, or you leave that open for your child to be exposed to.
Yeah.
And that does come back down to you and not the child. So just remembering that, we have the power to choose that. I just want that every parent to understand that it is your child, it's your decision, but just make sure that you're making an informed decision.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great advice. I think when it comes down to it, yes, make an informed decision. If they need to have a phone because of contact, get a brick type phone that doesn't have the social media access or where you can limit or control those things, and actually go and do your homework and research on your kids and where they're at developmentally. I think that's a great.
It's good. It's good to check.
This has been a fun conversation and a very relevant conversation, I think, for where we're at today. Natalie, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me in.
Look forward to our next conversation. Family, you're on Sunshine.